6:05, it is good to be with you on a Tuesday morning coming out of the Memorial Day weekend. Hope you were able to take some time and remember why we had yesterday off. Trying to explain this to a 6- and a 4-year-old yesterday is quite a doozy. But you know what? We do it, and we move on, of course, and we honor those who sacrificed everything on behalf of this country. But yes, part of me thought to myself yesterday morning, boy, trying to explain war to a 6- and a 4-year-old is actually harder than coming in here and doing this show for 4 hours. It's actually not even close the more I think about it. But you know what? That's part of being a parent, is it not? So with that, we get a new week started here on KCMO. And in case you missed it, there was a group over the weekend who had a big rally in Kansas City. They call themselves the Patriot Front. So on Saturday, this group was seen organizing in downtown, and they wear matching outfits of khaki and navy with white face masks, hats, and sunglasses. Nothing says I'm a tough American patriot like hiding your face with a mask. I mean, the same people who are, I guess, mocking people during COVID for wearing masks now mask up for their own rallies? What is this? Like, it's the same thing when you think about the anti-Israel protests that take place around the country. They're wearing COVID masks. These guys are walking around downtown Kansas City on the right side of the aisle wearing their masks. They're all masked losers. Every single one of them is a masked loser. At least I will say, I don't know, they have some outfit that they seem to wear. So if you wanted to go, John, at least you would have known what to wear over the weekend.
Well, you raid your mother's underwear for the mask.
That's what it looks like. It's not a COVID mask. It's like one of these. It does look like stretched women's underwear on their face. It's bizarre to me.
I may or may not know anything about I was like, wow, and jumping out of the U-Haul trucks. I'm glad they're busting them.
Yeah, I know. These guys jumping in and out of U-Haul trucks to get in and out of town. Why they were here, nobody knows. Their leader gave a rally speech at the World War I Museum and Memorial on Saturday. They came into town. The KCPD knew nothing about it. They marched about 150 people around Kansas City, and then they packed up their stuff and left. I don't know what the purpose of it was. No one seems to know. That's the other weird part of this. The media locally did not really have any information as to why they were here. They seem to show up in different cities at different times as like a counter protest to something going on, at least based on what I was reading through their Wikipedia last night. I really have no familiarity with this group, but Kansas City media loved covering this over a slow holiday weekend. You know, this was like right up their alley. It's always slow for the news cycle. You've got Memorial Day on Monday. They don't really want to talk about the Sarah Milgram story anymore, the young girl from Johnson County who got killed on Wednesday night of last week in Washington, D.C., for no reason other than the fact that she was Jewish. So this gives them a great out to drive up some, like, I don't know, crazy right-wing group shows up and marches around Kansas City. But this group appears to show up to different events as like a counter-protest to things happening around the country. They've been around for 7 years. They were a spinoff, I guess, from the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville a few years ago in Virginia. And, you know, their leader is this guy, Thomas Rousseau, I believe is how you would say his last name. He was a teenager when he founded the group. So I don't know, but to me, it's like, man, every time we get 100 people showing up for a protest in Kansas City, it somehow becomes a lead news story, depending on, of course, what their angle is. I mean, Emmanuel Cleaver had like 100 people out there on the lawn of the World War I Museum yelling about Doge and everything else. What was that, 2 weekends ago maybe? That Cleaver had like 100 people out there?
You mustard moo.
And it wasn't a good look for him at all. Same thing here. You got 150 goobers with face masks and sunglasses on, holding upside-down American flags and Confederate flags. And I'm like, why am I taking these people seriously? You know who I take seriously coming out of the weekend? You know who I like more coming out of the weekend? is our Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth. Now, if you did not see Pete Hegseth's speech yesterday, it was absolutely incredible. He spoke at Arlington National Cemetery to mark Memorial Day. And, listen, obviously, days like yesterday, you get speeches all over the country, people talking about what Memorial Day is about and what it means to them and what it means to this country. But Pete Hegseth gave a few-minute speech yesterday, and I watched it, and I thought to myself, man, this is the kind of stuff that every single American needs to hear. Like, I know most kids or a lot of school kids are done right now. At least, my kids are. I know that's the case for many kids right now across the metro. But listening to this 6-minute speech from Pete Hegseth on the meaning of Memorial Day, on why we have a day like this to honor those who sacrificed everything on behalf of their country, is the kind of thing that you can learn more about your country in this 6-minute speech than you could in a semester-long class. And I'm not going to play the whole 6 minutes, but I do want to play a couple of minutes for you here as we come out of a Memorial Day Monday into a Tuesday short week here on KCMO Talk Radio, just in case you missed this. And I understand there's a lot of stuff going on yesterday. You might have seen a lot of speeches, but I'll play 2 minutes here of Pete Hegseth and what he had to say during the Memorial Day ceremony that took place at Arlington National Cemetery.
Yet in America, with our great experiment in self-government, it is fitting that the most honored and closely guarded tomb in the land is that of an anonymous soldier of an unknown rank. When the first unknown soldier was selected for burial in 1921, he laid in state at the Capitol Rotunda. Throngs of Americans paid their respects. When the tomb was dedicated on November 11th, Veterans Day, the unknown received the Medal of Honor. It's a uniquely American tradition that we honor anonymous sacrifice above worldly greatness. While we don't know the unknown's identity, race, or creed, we know his story. It's the story of every soldier, every warrior. It's a simple story, as old as war. A young man with hopes and dreams and loves, who's called by his country, leaves behind his hometown, his parents, his siblings, his sweetheart, all that he knows, to go fight a war that he may or may not understand. He's called to go through hell and back, to sleep in a trench, to eat out of a tin cup or on the hood of a Humvee, to pray as bullets and bombs thunder around him, to fear for the bullet or the mortar or the IED or the RPG with his name on it. He does it willingly and stoically because he loves his country, his brothers in arms, and his family. This is the story of the unknown, the story of the fallen soldier who we have gathered today to honor. It is the story of the American warrior. He answered the call, fought, and died for this republic, the ultimate sacrifice of a free people. You see, the American soldier fights not because he hates what's in front of him, but because he loves what's behind him.
That was Pete Hegseth yesterday giving his speech at the Arlington National Cemetery to mark Memorial Day. It's about a 6-minute speech. We will share the YouTube video up on our social media pages on the KCMO Talk Radio Facebook and X accounts. You can watch them both there. And I would recommend if you want to watch it or somebody that you know needs to see that speech from Pete Hegseth yesterday, it was so powerful and he nailed it. And it didn't take him 50 minutes. It took him 6 minutes. One of my big beefs with politicians is that their speeches seem to get longer and longer and longer, and less is more. And Pete Hegseth just knocked that thing out of the park yesterday. They don't hate what's in front of them. They love what's behind them. And for too many Americans in 2025, they don't love what's behind them. I didn't serve. I know many of us did not. We honor those who did serve. But you think about how many people in this country do not love what is behind them. And that is the thing that has us broken today as a country more than anything else. Do you love what is behind you in the United States of America? Of course, there are examples upon examples in this country of people who love this country so much, they love what is behind them so much that they sacrificed everything. That's what Memorial Day is all about. But even those of us, of course, who didn't, thank goodness, didn't have to sacrifice everything. Do you still love what is behind you? And that is the question that I think every American needs to ask themselves coming out of Memorial Day weekend. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, there will be a big announcement today at 10 o'clock from one of our two governors. And it will play a role in what the future of our region looks like. We'll tell you about it next on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We're back on a Tuesday morning streaming live right here on the KCMO Talk Radio app. 10 o'clock this morning, there will be a press conference at the state capitol on the Missouri side, Jeff City. Governor Mike Kehoe holding a press conference to announce details regarding a special session. This is an event that will be open to the media, and we are expecting to hear from Governor Mike Kehoe about his plans to bring back the legislature, that would be the House and the state Senate, to get legislation passed to try to entice the Chiefs and the Royals to stay on the Missouri side of the state line. Now, this was announced yesterday. We're trying to get the governor on the show tomorrow after this announcement comes down at 10 o'clock today. The question really becomes, will the legislature play ball? No pun intended. Will the legislature play ball? The question that people have down in Jeff City is whether or not the governor will make the House of Representatives, the House side of the legislature, pass House Bill 19. That is the bill that we were telling you about a couple of weeks ago that ticked off a lot of the senators. That was part of the reason that they did not want to pass funding for the Chiefs and the Royals, which had passed the House but not the Senate. And the Senate basically closed up shop a couple of weeks ago and said, we're done. We're not going to go ahead with this, and we are going to basically go home without passing any money for the Chiefs and the Royals. Part of the reason is that the Senate was ticked off that the House did not pass this about $500 million in infrastructure funding. So you've got that side of the equation here as well. And if the House doesn't pass, if Mike Kehoe does not ask his own House to pass this House Bill 19, it is going to be very difficult to get rural Republicans in Missouri on board with the idea of spending potentially hundreds of millions of dollars on funding for the Chiefs and the Royals. If Mike Kehoe can get both of those things done in a special session, which according to the people I talked to, he can, then he's got a shot to get the Chiefs and the Royals funding. But if this is a standalone special session exclusively about the Chiefs and the Royals, it is going to be very difficult for him to accomplish. So he will make the announcement this morning at 10 o'clock as to what that special session is going to be about. But then over the weekend, I saw this in the Kansas City Star. It was actually a pretty good opinion piece, guest commentary by a guy named Sam Burnett. He wrote here, I love the Royals, but Kansas City should not subsidize billionaires. He says here, and starts off the article, I went to look at some new golf clubs the other day. My game has really been coming along, but the latest technology behind forged iron clubs is quite amazing and might take me to the next level. The only problem? Golf clubs are expensive, and those really weren't in my budget. Only this was no problem at all because I figured I'd just call John. John Sherman's office. Good morning, I said. May I speak to Mr. Sherman, please? He's not in this morning. May I ask what this is regarding? Sure, I said. I don't know John. He doesn't know me. But he's asking me and all my neighbors to subsidize his hobbies, so I'm just asking for the same from him. I'm at the Golf Galaxy checkout with a new set of irons. How would Mr. Sherman like to help me pay for these? The author goes on the note in the Star. See how ridiculous this situation is? I didn't really call Mr. Sherman's office. I wouldn't know how to, and that's okay since I don't really want to ask him to pay for parts of my golf clubs. If I want to play golf, it's on me to save my own money to do so, or seek my own form of subsidy by asking my wife. Similarly, if John Sherman wants to own a Major League Baseball team, and I'm glad that he does, he needs to pay for his own toys. Asking the residents of our city, our county, and our state to help subsidize ventures that will be owned and operated by professional sports franchises making profits is offensive. The article goes on to note how there are obviously years of economic analysis that share that these public subsidies of stadiums are not an effective form of economic development. All that's true. Here's the kicker. Here's the question. And this is something that even Patrick Tuohy can't answer. I'm not lobbying for states to go out there and start bending over backwards for pro sports teams and having an arms race with the public taxpayer's dollar. I'm not advocating for that or lobbying for that. The one difference, the one thing in this analogy with this guy's golf clubs that doesn't work is how much civic pride actually comes from a sports team, and how do you put a monetary value on that? The pride that this town has had for decades, but certainly for the last half a decade in the wake of this Chiefs run to multiple Super Bowls and winning multiple Super Bowls, is something you can't really put a price tag on. What is the price tag on Sunday Night Football showing shots of the Kauffman Center and downtown Kansas City in the plaza? What is the value in that for Kansas City? There have not been any studies done on this, so we don't really know. But that's the one part of this entire story with these two sports franchises that the guy doesn't seem to, or that the analogy doesn't work with, like, hey, will John Sherman buy my golf clubs? I get what he's going for there, and in a purely black and white sense, it may work to a degree. But this guy having new golf clubs does nothing for his neighbor when it comes to civic pride. It doesn't get Mark showing up to work every day in a hoodie with this guy's face on it because he's got a new pair of golf clubs.
Exactly.
Just doesn't work. What are you wearing today there, Mark? You got a Chiefs hat on? You got the Super Bowl hat on?
Girl dad.
Just a little girl dad hoodie. Very nice. You look great there, my
Family
man. You look awesome.
She's a real beauty.
That's right. You're looking good today. So that's the part of it. That whether it's the Chiefs staying in Missouri, the Royals staying in Missouri, or either or both of these teams going to Kansas, that part of the civic pride calculation is something that nobody has been able to actually put a finger on and put a price point on. But it is real. And clearly that's why Mike Kehoe is leaning into this today and will call the legislature back for a special session that is going to happen in the month of June. Why the month of June? Because the deadline for the Star bonds that will not be extended in Kansas is coming up at the end of June. So that special session will be happening in the next couple of weeks. So let's just be clear. Yes, you have free speech in this country, but it doesn't mean that you have unlimited free speech when it comes to your employment. And that is a distinction that, frankly, more Americans need to understand. 634, good morning. Happy Tuesday. Glad you're back with us starting the short week on KCMO 95.7 FM. So the University of Kansas is being sued by a former student who says he was fired after speaking to reporters about the elimination of gender-inclusive housing at his on-campus residence hall. So this student is a trans student. The lawsuit was filed in U.S. District Court in KCK on behalf of Anthony Alvarez, who recently completed his junior year at KU. And just so you know, this student does not have a leg to stand on. And I'll explain that here. Alvarez alleges he was fired in March for violating his employment agreement when he was quoted in an article back in February in KCUR. That is your local National Panhandler radio affiliate. And the article on KCUR was titled, KU Students Protest Housing Changes They Say Will Harm Trans and Non-Binary Residents. This is KCUR intel in a nutshell. This is like, they just love stories like this. They're weirdly obsessed with them. So the complaint accuses KU of violating Alvarez's free speech and of retaliating against him. So in the article, Alvarez, who is transgender, expressed frustration with KU's plans to get rid of a gender-neutral bathroom in the dorm and to prohibit students there from sharing dorms with people whose gender on file with the university is different from their own. KU's website defines gender-inclusive housing assignments as, quote, a housing option in which two or more students share a multiple occupancy space in mutual agreement regardless of the student's sex, gender identity, and or gender expression. See, this is a classic example of you cannot win the woke war. KU tries and tries and tries to prove how woke it is, and even then, they end up getting sued by a trans student over a alleged free speech issue. Think about that. At KU, this is not Hillsdale College. This is University of Kansas. Mark, you should have worn your KU hoodie today. That would have fit in well for the story. Dozens of students protested the changes, which were announced in a February 5th email to Grace Pearson residents. This guy Alvarez, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I don't know what Alvarez is, but Alvarez was one of 3 trans students quoted in the KCUR article. Alvarez says he was speaking as a trans person who would be affected by the policy, not speaking as a representative of the university. See, that's not how it works. You cannot go into the media and trash your employer and then be like, wait, I have free speech. You can't do that. No. Yes, you have free speech to literally in this country say as you please, for the most part. For the most part, right? I mean, you can't go yell fire in a crowded theater, but you can, for the most part, say whatever you want. We got this Patriot Front group patrolling Kansas City and jumping in and out of U-Hauls over the weekend. So, yes, you have free speech in America, but you don't have the right to trash your employer to the media and then sue your employer or your former employer by alleging you violated my free speech rights. I don't know where this lawsuit ends up, but I hope this thing gets thrown out as quickly as possible. And just to be clear, for those of you wondering, KU did not eliminate gender-inclusive housing at all dorms, but they advised the students in this Grace Pearson building who want to retain gender-inclusive assignments should apply to a different scholarship hall for the 2025-2026 school year. They were basically just saying to these kids, hey, if this is how you want to live, apply to a different residence hall and you'll be okay. And this Alvarez character, who is a resident assistant for KU, basically calls out KU's policy and then cries that he got bleep canned by the school. It's like, buddy, you don't understand. That's not, you don't just get to call the shots as you see fit, okay? You've got to play ball with your employer. If I went to the Kansas City Star and started trashing Cumulus Media for things that they might have done in the building that I disagreed with, they would fire me, and they should fire me in that scenario. They don't have to employ me when I trash them to other media, and then I'm going to sit here and say, oh, you violated my free speech. Yes, and they have the free speech rights to fire my butt. That's what this guy does not understand. I love how these woke turds love free speech. They love everything that America offers until it impacts them, and then they don't even understand how to utilize things like their rights to free speech to their advantage. They don't understand it, and they never will understand it. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO. Let's go to KCK. Ashley is there. Hey, Ashley, you're on KCMO. Good morning.
Hey, this is just typical leftist behavior. No matter what we do to try to appease them, it's never going to work because they want to live their lives angry. And it's just going to be the way that it is. It's why people like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton still have a job. It's why kids like this are just going to keep living their lives. And the sooner that we realize it, and the sooner that the left and actual logical people on the left, who there actually are a few, I've had conversations with them, them realize it and start turning away from this woke behavior, the better off that we are going to be. If not, if these people get control, it's going to be the demise of our country. They have to have a reason to be angry no matter what you do to try to appease these people, have a gender-neutral bathroom, change the rules in the dorm. It's never going to be enough. You give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. It's just nothing is going to work for them, and it's absolutely ridiculous. But this is the way they can stay in power because they keep their constituency angry. And that's all that they're going to do.
Thank you, Ashley. There's always got to be a next here in all this, and that's exactly right. There always has to be some kind of victim mentality. There always has to be something about everyone's out to screw me, and that's not the case here. KU has buildings for students on campus who want to be in a non-binary situation when it comes to housing that will accommodate that. But this individual, this Anthony Alvarez, who got fired from his job, her job, I don't know. It's too early on a Tuesday morning to try to figure that part of it out. But you cannot be a resident assistant, which basically means you are a KU employee, and then trash KU's new protocols and then expect to continue to keep your job and then file a lawsuit when you don't in the name of free speech. You just can't do it. And the broader point there is a good one that Ashley's making. This forever world of I'm a victim, woe is me, look at me, I'm getting screwed, everyone's out to get me. It's like, no, you would have kept your job if you just kept your mouth shut. Don't talk to KCUR. I promise you, they're not looking out for your best interests at all. 913-408-7957. That is the text line and the studio line here on a Tuesday morning. Pete, if you want to trash your employer, shouldn't you always start out your sentence by saying, with all due respect? That's right.
Yeah, you got a qualifier.
Yeah, you got to have the qualifier. That's well done. With all due respect, you guys are transphobic at KU. And KU's like, you've got to be kidding me. But to Ashley's point as well, you give an inch, they're taking the mile, no matter what you do. I mean, when KU's getting sued for not being sufficiently woke by somebody who was working as a resident assistant, who they then fired for talking to the media poorly about the university's new policies, you literally can't win. That's why you'd hope like heck some of these universities would wake up and smell the roses. I have never seen a league try to destroy itself when it's been suffering for 30 years like the WNBA is trying to do. And I know that there is a push from some people to bring the WNBA to Kansas City. And if it was just about basketball, I'd say game on. I got 3 daughters. I think it'd be great. I would totally go to a game. I'm not going to go to a game when every single time the WNBA ends up in the news, it is about either treating Caitlin Clark, their star player, the main reason people care about the WNBA, like crap, or commemorating George Floyd 5 years after his death. I kid you not. I'm not making this up. This was over the weekend. Oh, my goodness. You had the Minnesota, I think they're the Lynx. Yes, the Lynx held a moment of silence for George Floyd over the weekend, 5 years after his death. And here is what one of their players had to say in this moment of silence. Nafisa Collier grabbed the microphone at midcourt to address the crowd, and it wasn't much of a crowd, but did address the crowd, and said this about George Floyd. Here we go.
Thank you guys for taking a minute to honor the life of George Floyd. George was a father, a brother, and a son. And his life, like every life, held meaning. His death exposed the holes that are still in our justice and criminal institutions today. And his 5-year anniversary reminds us that we must continue the fight against criminal, racial, and social injustices. We cannot stay silent. Every life deserves respect and dignity. Thank you.
Imagine going to a WNBA game, taking your daughter, your granddaughter, and a woke sermon breaks out. For some reason, Collier missed out on the 8 jail terms Floyd previously served. The fentanyl and methamphetamine an autopsy found in his system at the time of his death seemed to miss her talking points as well. They did not choose to address the hundreds of businesses and lives that were ruined during the riots that took place in the name of Black Lives Matter after the death of George Floyd across Minneapolis and, frankly, cities all over the country, including on a much more minor level here in Kansas City. So the WNBA has an incredible opportunity here. This league has been losing money and irrelevant for 30 years. They have a superstar in Caitlin Clark that people actually want to see, want to watch. And they're treating her like garbage on the court. And now on the 5-year anniversary of George Floyd, the biggest story coming out of the weekend in the WNBA is this. This is the last thing the league wants. It's like you've been running a business for 30 years and you finally get an opportunity to turn a profit to make money. And you're like, nah, I'm good. Nah, I'll pass. This is not what people want when they go to a sporting event. It's not what anybody's looking for. It's like if the PGA Tour in the mid to late 90s was like, yeah, this guy Tiger Woods is here, and he's going to bring a whole new audience, and our purses are going to skyrocket. But, you know, we're going to treat him like dog poo, and we're going to make it totally political as well while we're at it. Be like, what are you doing? That's insane. It's a horrible business idea. Well, the WNBA is doing exactly that. And they are missing a golden opportunity to mainstream this sport, make it palatable and interesting to people who never otherwise would have been interested in it. And they'll have no one to blame but themselves if things go totally sideways and bomb out. And this is just the latest example as to why. Look at these numbers. U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics says here that more than 20% of construction workers are 55 or older. As those experienced workers are set to retire, experts say the pipeline of new talent is shrinking. Well, this is a problem, and it has been for a generation now. Too many people are opting like Mark to get, a 2-hour course from Harvard and call themselves Harvard graduates. Then they are actually saying, I've got to get a real job, and I've got to figure out how to actually, make money for a living. I can't go to my favorite woke institution, go into the arts and sciences school, and learn absolutely nothing that applies to the real world, and then complain about it and beg one political party to bail out my student loans. People are starting to wake up, but we've done so much damage over the last generation with too many people being educated in nothing and having no discernible skills that now a lot of the people that should be in the workforce looking at these trade options, they're not there. And you can't find the workers in this line of work right now.
Yeah, I'm old enough to kind of live the paradigm shift here, if you will. When I was in high school, got to go to college, get that degree, got to go to college. Well, here I am, for what that's worth. But we get to the point where you're acting like a trade, iron workers, all the guys that go in and do that, they make more money than I make. So if I'd have known that back then, instead of following, hey, go to college thing, and been like some of my peers, I might be making a lot more money. Might even be retired by now.
You might be.
But the point would be that the business model here is kind of shifting, and we need, besides the population decline, where you just had numbers to throw at it, we now need to change our whole thought process about once you graduate high school, what do you want to do?
Yeah, but then you wouldn't be here, John.
Well, it's too late for me, but I'm just a cautionary tale. And then to the point, my son did not go to college. He's doing very well, making more money than I ever had now. So he's right at your age, you and Mark's age.
Well, then you wouldn't have all of Kansas City hearing your one-liners. What good would that be?
Well, it served its purpose at one point. But like I say, it's shifted.
It certainly has. So, I'll tell you.
By the way, how many more of me do you want coming down the line, right?
No comment.
Yeah, right.
Leave it at that. But you look at the opportunities out there. You know this. Whether you're in the workforce in this line of work, or if you're like me and you're someone who has to hire a lot of this stuff out, because trust me, you don't want me anywhere near hammers and nails for the most part. You just want no part of it. I can do the basics, But outside of that, you got to know where your skill sets end. And I know very well when it comes to this work where my skill sets end. It's hard to find people for a lot of this stuff. So, with this being a major problem, I did want to open it up to you, the folks who work in this space, what you're seeing. Because remember this as well. 20% of construction workers are 55 or older. Let's be honest. The 55-year-old who's been breaking his back for 35, 40 years is in much different physical shape. His body is a lot more wear and tear than somebody who has not been in that field of work for 35 plus years. So a 55-year-old may really be like going on 70 when you talk about the body breakdown, potentially. Not saying that's everybody, but you're seeing this especially in that line of work. Paul's on KCMO, in KCMO. Paul, what's going on? What are you seeing, my man?
Hi, good morning, Pete. I appreciate you taking my phone call. I just wanted to bring some light to what the comment that you made about a labor shortage in Kansas City. We have personally seen an increase in our membership over the last year with all the construction going on. We've been able to retain 636 new members to our organization just for the work going on. And in reality, the success of this industry is real simple. 70% of it is showing up. I know it's hard to say, but a lot of people struggle with showing up on time. The other 20% is attitude, and the last 10% is being teachable. And that right there, the formula for anybody who wants to succeed in the trades.
I think that's true for not just your line of work. I think that's true for a lot of jobs. Showing up is sometimes half the battle, more than half the battle, as you note there, maybe 70% in your line of work. And then just doing what you're told to do in a timely fashion. Like, it's not incredibly difficult in many cases to get ahead. And with the shortage that you guys are seeing in that line of work, although you're growing, still, that's more than half the battle, just showing up. So do you feel like Kansas City is having a resurgence in the construction field and the trade field in general?
To a degree, but it's all about how we promote ourselves. Like you guys said earlier, not very many people, especially when they get out of high school, look towards trades. They want to go the college route for many reasons, but they decided to go into the trade because, you're able to get into a trade where they teach you for 4 years, they'll prepare you, they'll train you, and they'll educate you, and then you'll be going out into the field. You earn money while you learn, and you pretty much technically go to a 4-year college, but you end up coming out debt free, and being able to really do a lot with the trade that you decide to go into.
Yeah. Paul, thank you. I really think, too, the high schools have got to be pushing this as well. That's got to happen.
Yeah, we're definitely in high schools. We're even going into middle schools now. Just get some exposure to these individuals and these students, the next coming up generation, and it's really been working on our behalf, and we're excited. We're excited to really see what the future holds. That's
great, Paul. Excellent call. Thank you for making it. That's fantastic. They're going into local middle schools as well. Earl's in Kearney. Hey, Earl, go ahead, my man. You're on KCMO.
Hey, Pete. Pleasure talking with you. I really like your show and listening to it in the morning. So, anyway, I'll get to the point. I've been in the trades for 29 years. Been doing plumbing, HVAC, and moved into general maintenance about 20 years ago. And I taught at KCKCC over in Kansas City, Kansas, and also the defunct Vatterott College, and have taught trades. And the biggest thing that I've seen is the public perception people have of the trades. We have been sold a bill of goods in this country that unless you graduate from high school, pursue an academic degree, and sit behind a desk for the rest of your life, you are a failure. And that is the biggest gripe that I have. Right now I'm in facilities maintenance, and I'm a maintenance guy in a big high-rise building, and I think 28 to 34 years of age is about our youngest trades guy that is in there. Everybody else is getting up there in age. And it's a problem. It is a definite problem, and public perception has to change. I'd also like to say one more thing, kind of debunk the thing about hard on your body. It can be hard on your body, but it's not what it used to be because there's a big push towards safety, thanks to our friends at OSHA. By the way, OSHA is not a small town in Wisconsin. But, yeah, OSHA
Yes.
and what they've been able to do and the mindset with the litigious society that we're in, we're really on a push for taking care of your body now and more about risk mitigation. So that has come into the factors as well.
That's good to know. And I will just ask you this. During your time at KCK-CC, was there a pushback against people getting into that line of work, or was it encouraged?
Well, they have a trades campus that is actually on, it would be the east side of KCK, which is away from the main campus, and it's dedicated to the trades. And I'll tell you what, it is an excellent program over there. The HVAC program's excellent. They have a machine, I guess you call it a machinist program, and it's second to none. Plus the electrical program's good. They're really pushing the trades over there, and they do an outstanding job.
That's good to know.
So it's a little, so it's a smaller satellite portion of it, and they're by themselves. They also have an automotive tech section, and they try to push it there, and it's doing a really great job when I left.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that, Earl.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You as well, my man. Mike in Kansas City. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, you're not factoring in that a lot of people in construction are working longer. This guy tied into something, too. It's a lot easier doing construction now than it was, a generation or two ago. They got the electric hammers. They got all this equipment to help you move things like that. And it's not as physically strenuous. I know people in construction that are in their 70s that are still working. And that is one of the other things to factor into it. But it is a good idea to get younger people involved in it. And I also go with him with the stigma about it. I think Mark Levin brought this up on his show one time, that, in his group, as somebody going into law or music or something like that, somebody becoming a welder probably make 3 times as much money, stigmatized by the community.
Yeah.
So, he does have that. But, getting back to the point, the technology and the societal thing of people not retiring anymore.
I know.
People not
I
retiring
got you.
at 65 or
well,
you got the
and there's
idea,
a lot of reasons for that, Mike. Is it the job? Is it they need the money? Is it they like working? So let's look at this. President Trump floated out over the weekend, sending $3 billion in Harvard grants to trade schools. This came yesterday. Trump writing on Truth Social, what a great investment that would be for the USA and so badly needed, as he floated the idea of redistributing $3 billion in grant money for Harvard to trade schools. He slammed the school as very anti-Semitic in the post, but did not delve into the specifics around any potential plan to redistribute funds, what grant money he might pull, or when the action could take place. But when you talk about what this country needs right now to continue its forward momentum, to continue its growth, do we need more funding for Harvard? Do we need billions of dollars in grant money continuing to pour into Harvard? Which, yes, there's absolute value in Harvard. We know that some of our finest business leaders come from there. Or could you take some of that money and say, you know what? What we need right now, where the demand is for workers, is in the trades. So if we're going to have government involvement in higher education, part of it, in my estimation, should be going to places of need. And clearly, based on the data, which is where we started the conversation, 20% of construction workers are 55 or older. We've got to get people into those lines of work, and we have to figure out how to do it very quickly.
The pendulum on that stigma, I think, is starting to come back the other way. Like the first caller said, if you get into the middle schools, and this is what I think the city of Kansas City should do, they have so many jobs, you should be in the public school system saying, we have these types of jobs, go into this type of training.
Yeah, I'm
Right?
good with that.
Yeah,
I think that's a fantastic
That's what we need
idea.
to do at the grassroots level.
Yeah, and that can be done immediately. It will take time to get those workers there, obviously. It's kind of like when we talk about the police department going into elementary schools and middle schools and trying to put a good face onto cops, which doesn't happen in too many corners of our society. It will take some time, but it can happen right away. And when you start telling these kids, hey, you don't have to go to college, you don't have to waste 4 years sitting in a classroom, you can start working when you get out of high school, get paid to do it, and then earn a fantastic living after a few years, you've got absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain. And you don't have to turn to a life that is, riddled with crime and, viewing yourself as someone who, well, if I can't go to college, I might as well take this other path because what else am I going to do to make a buck? You kidding me? You heard from people in the last few minutes who are like, no, we're paying damn well. You'll make good money in this line of work. Trust me, even if you're, and I don't mean this even if you're just, but guys that are doing handyman work making great money. Especially when you factor in the cash angle of it, too. Let's be honest. 913-408-7957. It's 9:18. It's good to be back on a Tuesday morning on KCMO. Kevin Keatsman, Uncanceled, is coming up at 10. Didn't think much of it. I mean, obviously had an opinion on it when I shared it on social media yesterday. But I didn't expect it to get the traction that it ended up getting. I tried to avoid most social media yesterday for the day off and the Memorial Day holiday. But I saw this post from Clay Travis, and it was a picture of the United States from the New York Times. And it shows the shift to the right that much of America experienced during the Trump era from 2016 to 2024. And you're seeing large swaths of the country moving to the right. It doesn't mean necessarily that it is a conservative area, but the shift to the right has been really big in some cases, like in Las Vegas, like in Cleveland, Ohio, Detroit, New York City, Newark, New Jersey, Miami, Florida. You see a lot of these big pockets of big red circles, and you can see this map if you can't envision this in your head. I have it up on X at Pete Mundo. I put it up yesterday. You can see it for yourself. And Clay Travis is the one who shared the picture. And I just reshared it. And I simply wrote, it's amazing to look at this map, but look at the embarrassing blue big dot in Kansas City, led by OWWs, Overeducated Woke Whites, in Johnson County, Kansas. So one of the biggest, bluest dots in the country, which means the region has shifted to the left since 2016, is right here in Kansas City. And it's the entire metro. It's both sides of state line. Kansas City has seen one of the largest shifts from right to left, while the bulk of the country was shifting from left to right or moving towards the right. If they were right of center, they're now further right. If they're left of center, they're more moderate. You get the point, right? But Kansas City is right up there with Atlanta. It's right up there with parts of Northern Virginia, Denver, Colorado, Seattle, Washington, as having some of the largest shifts to the left of any area in the entire country. That is a stunning but also predictable development that we followed over the last few election cycles. I mean, look at Sharice Davids. Kevin Yoder had this thing on lockdown, 3rd District in Kansas. Sharice Davids can't lose it. This is not a swing district anymore. Let's be clear. I don't know who's going to run for the 3rd District in Kansas, but after seeing Amanda Atkins get smoked twice and Reddy also lose convincingly here last time around, I'm treating the 3rd District in Kansas going forward like I do anybody who challenges Emmanuel Cleaver. I mean, I might give him a few minutes on the show, but I am not focusing on this election come 2026 like I thought I would have 6 years ago. I mean, in 2020, we had that robust primary. Remember that Amanda Atkins, Sarah Hart-Weir was in that race, Adrian Foster. You had good people, and it was like, man, we're on top of this. And then, of course, Amanda Atkins wins the first time and gets blown out, loses again a second time, and then same thing for Reddy. This is not a swing district. And Kansas City's shift to the left as a metropolitan area is one of the most leftward shifts in all of American politics during the Trump era. The TDS in Kansas City is real, and what it's going to take is really solid leadership on the right side of the aisle that understands the makeup of the region that actually wants to win. And that doesn't mean people that like to do talk shows or people that are podcasters or people who want to be famous on social media. That's not going to win. Like, I'm not doing this show to try to help Johnson County necessarily develop its future for the Republican Party. That's not the point. This is an entertainment-based show. But for people that want to win in local politics, gosh, you need some real serious leaders who know how to win and not victim blame and not complain and not yell at the clouds, because there is so much of that going on. There's a lot of self-inflicted wounds here as well.